Hey everyone, I'm Paul, and today I'm customizing the handlebars on my Honda CRF300L. I'll be installing aluminum handlebars from Renthal, some Tusk handguards with built-in turn signals, and the double take mirrors. These mirrors are cool because they use the ring ball mount system, so you can fold them down when you're going off-road, and you're less likely to break them if you drop the bike. Let's get started. The first step is getting everything off the handlebars, starting with the old mirrors. Loosen them up with a 14mm wrench and spin them off. 2 bolts hold the clutch lever. Use an 8mm wrench to remove them. Don't worry about that wire, it's the clutch safety switch. 2 Phillips head screws hold the left side switch together. The top of the switch gets caught on the turn signal lever. Be careful and slide it past the lever. Notice the switch has this metal round alignment tab that sticks up. It corresponds to a hole in the handlebar and keeps the switch from turning. We'll come back to that later. On the right side of the handlebar, you'll find the front brake lever. Remove 2 bolts that hold the lever. The right side switch is also held together by 2 screws. Remove the zip ties that hold the wiring onto the handlebars. These are cool because they're reusable. Let's get the switch and brake lever out of the way for now. The handlebar clamps have a total of 4 bolts. Loosen them up evenly and remove the clamps. All these bolts are the same length. Take the handlebars off and pull them away from the throttle tube. The stock handlebar is made of steel and already has threaded inserts for handguards. Today I'll be installing a Renthal aluminum handlebar. The only one that was in stock is the Ricky Carmichael bend. That's fine. It's almost the same as the Enduro bar, but with about 1 inch less back sweep. People buy Renthal bars because they're lighter weight and stronger than stock. The original bars weigh 917 grams. My scale says the aluminum bars weigh 723 grams. That's about half a pound lighter. I'll be bolting on handguards too, so my bike will be heavier than before anyway, but at least I can make up for some of it here. Side by side, the new bars look very similar to the original. The rise is about 1 inch higher than stock. Looking at the bars from above, it's hard to tell the difference. The Renthal bars are at the bottom of the screen. Insert the end of the handlebar into the throttle tube, then set it on the clamps. It's a good idea to add Loctite to the bolts on your motorcycle. It vibrates a lot, so you don't want things getting loose. Install all 4 bolts and tighten them a little bit at a time while checking to make sure the gap at the front and back of the clamps is the same. If you like torque wrenches, set yours to 20 foot-pounds or 27 newton meters. Check each bolt twice and don't go past the torque setting. Oh, and I forgot I was going to change the grips. If you turn the bars all the way right, you can force the throttle tube off the end. A smart person will loosen up the lower throttle cable and remove it from the throttle cam. That way you'll have plenty of slack in the throttle cables. I bought these ODI Rogue grips because they're big and squishy and the left one locks onto the handlebar. For some reason, the 2022 CRF300L isn't listed here. Will this be a problem? The right grip comes with different throttle cams to fit different bikes. Cam B is the same shape as mine, but it's a bit bigger. I tried to install it on my motorcycle, but I couldn't loosen the throttle cables enough and it just didn't fit. Cam A looks promising. It's the wrong shape and too narrow. It's also a bit bigger diameter, but pretty close. Will it work? Or is some minor detail going to make my motorcycle dangerous? Let's find out. I'll be installing handguards that bolt into the end of the handlebars, so the grips need to have holes in them. Rocky Mountain ATV sells a special punch tool for this, but a stepper drill bit works too. I cleaned up the holes with a razor blade. Make sure the throttle tube slides easily on the bar and doesn't get stuck. Okay, now let's hook those throttle cables into the throttle cam. This is very easy because I disconnected the lower cable at the engine and there's plenty of slack. With the throttle tube connected, go back to the engine and put that lower cable back in. Adjust the throttle cable so you have a little bit of play in the throttle tube and you can achieve throttle fully closed and fully open. I ended up fumbling around with the throttle a lot, so I unplugged the brake switch wires so the lever wouldn't be in the way. The right side switch snaps back together pretty easily. Both screws are the same length. Use a Phillips head screwdriver and reinstall them. All 4 brake lever bolts are the same. Add Loctite to them. Let's install the right side brake lever clamp and tighten the bolts just a little bit. Leave them loose enough that you can adjust the lever up and down on the handlebars. The cool thing about lock-on grips is they don't require any kind of glue. Just slide the grip on and tighten the small bolt to hold it in place. Now I'm ready to install the left side control switch. Install the clutch lever, but leave the bolts loose enough that you can still adjust it up and down. Install the 2 Phillips head screws into the left side switch. With everything installed on the handlebars, the next step is to adjust the brake levers and controls to get them where I want them before I install the handguards. That feels good. Let's tighten that down. When I said adjust the levers however you like, I was just kidding. The levers need to be just slightly lower than horizontal. It's sort of a puzzle fitting everything together with the handguards, and you lose most of the adjustment. The brake hose coming off the lever is sticking too far forward, so I'm loosening the bolt and adjusting it down to make room for the handguards. I recommend adding Loctite to all the bolts for the handguards so they don't come loose later. Add a little grease to the threaded insert so it doesn't get seized to the bar later. Now I'm ready to install the handguards. Install the long bolt into the expanding handlebar insert and turn it enough to hold the little nut at the end. Install it into the handlebars and tighten the bolt enough so the handguard stays in place. You want to adjust the handguard even with the brake lever. Its purpose is to prevent levers from breaking when you drop the bike. Notice the throttle tube has some side-to-side movement. You want to adjust it so the grip doesn't drag against the handguard. You can adjust this by moving the right side switch in or out. My plan is to install this bracket upside down so it clears the brake hose. Notice the angle is a bit off though. The end of the handguard needs to be bent outward. I tried heating the end of the handguard with a torch and bending it by hand. These things are tough, and this didn't work. The sledgehammer did the trick though. I needed to move the brake hose down just a little bit to leave plenty of clearance to the bracket. Now I can tighten the 3 bolts on this bracket. Alright, I have the handguards installed. On this side, you can see the bracket is upside down and the brake hose goes under it. The handguard is even with the brake lever. Here's another look from underneath. If I drop the bike and the handguard moves up, it won't damage my brake hose. Going around to the other side, I have the bracket right side up with the clutch cable going over it. There is plenty of clearance here, so nothing will get damaged if the handguard moves. The next thing I want to take a look at is this brake hose. It's sitting directly in my line of sight, so I can't see the speedometer. The brake hose has a banjo fitting that goes to the ABS stuff, and it's angled forward for some reason. I grabbed it with needle nose vice grips and bent it back, turning it into a straight fitting. Here you can see the hose is angled a lot farther back than it was before, and I'm hoping when I ride the motorcycle, I'll be able to see up over the hose. The bracket that held the hose going to the lever is no longer needed, so I chopped it off. Remember how the old handlebars had holes to align the switches? Let's do something about that. I wrapped the bar with some masking tape and reinstalled the switch. Align the switch where you want it, then tighten down the screws. Take the switch back off and voila! The little mounting pin left a mark in the masking tape. I drilled partway into the handlebar with a 3/16 inch drill bit. I did not drill all the way through. It's just an indent to keep the switch from moving. And I'm reinstalling the switch for the 50th time. Now the switch can't twist on the handlebars, and if you look closely, the gap is closed around the edges of the switch. Let's look at the other side. I haven't drilled this side yet. The gap is closed on the front, but back here you can see the switch isn't fully closed. I drilled another indent on the right side of the handlebar. I actually messed this up and made the hole too big, and the throttle cable assembly would twist on the handlebar. I had to add tape to correct it. I recommend that instead of drilling holes, you just Dremel the alignment pins down a little shorter so they still bite into the handlebar but don't prevent the switch from fully closing. So I got everything together and I realized the throttle cam catches a little bit on the housing if you push it to the side and it gets stuck at full throttle. That's super dangerous. Cam A was too narrow and didn't fit. Cam B is the right width, but too big in diameter, and the cables are just too short to let it fit. After wasting a bunch of time on these ODI grips, I still couldn't get the throttle cables to work right. The fact that these grips say they don't fit the CRF300L would have been a clue, but some of us aren't that smart. Anyway, I installed the stock grips and they fit perfectly. Moving on. The Tusk handguards I ordered come with optional turn signals that bolt into the lower part of the plastic piece. Unfortunately, these LED turn signals are small and not very bright. They don't have a running light feature, meaning they're off unless I'm turning. Here you can see they're much dimmer than the stock turn signals. Since I'll be using my motorcycle mostly on the road, I would rather just keep the stock lights. These Tusk handguard signals would be good for someone who rides off-road 90% of the time and wants their bike to be technically legal on the way to the trail. Finally, I'm installing the double take mirrors. These are great because they use the Ram ball mount system. The right and left side mirrors are sold separately. You can also buy any part of the mirror system separately, so if you just broke one mirror, no need to buy the entire set. I applied Loctite to the threaded balls and tightened them into the levers with an oil filter strap wrench. Installing the mirrors literally takes less than a minute. Just drop the Ram mount adapters onto the balls on each side, then pop the mirrors into place. Tighten the wing nut a little and adjust the mirrors to where you want them. You can angle the mirrors out a lot more than regular mirrors if you would like to see the cars behind you instead of just looking at your shoulders. If you're going off-road, you can easily fold these mirrors down or just take them off since it only takes about 30 seconds to put them back on. That's really nice. What did we learn today? Replacing handlebars is pretty straightforward. Installing hand guards is a bit of a puzzle. Installing lock-on grips that don't fit your motorcycle? Impossible. Double take mirrors? Very easy. Thanks for watching, and remember to check out my other motorcycle repair videos.